Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Tea Time, the podcast. And this episode, I know it already sounds better than the last episode. Um, Go back, listen to the last one if you didn't listen to it already. I apologize from now, even though honestly, there's nothing to apologize for because the audio quality isn't bad. I just didn't have my podcasting mic plugged in. I had my earphones plugged in, and that is what was the audio source for my last podcast because I was listening back to it before I published, and I was like, I had my mic right in front of my mouth. Like, why does this sound so echoey? And it just didn't sound like rich and high definition that a podcasting mic would give. Now, again, there are many like six-figure entrepreneurs and seven-figure entrepreneurs with podcasts, and their audio doesn't sound as clear, crisp, and like it's very low. Like they have all, like I just don't understand. Like they have all this equipment that I see them using, and it's like, why do I still have to struggle to hear you? Right? And this is why, like, sometimes when my friends who listen to my podcast message me to tell me, oh, I'm hearing an echo, like, okay, yes, I know you're an audio professional or whatever, but what matters is that the audio is loud enough that people can hear. Because there are people out here with all of this equipment, and yet you still have to raise your volume to the max to be able to hear them. So, nonetheless, the little like minor echoes you're not gonna hear in this episode, I'm sure you can already hear the difference. Yeah, I just realized afterwards, like, oops, my bad. But the good news is you don't have to struggle to hear what I'm saying. So I always have that part covered. All right, so in this episode, I'm going to be sharing my top 3 lessons in business. This episode, my hope is to be a lot more concise than my last one. And yeah, let's just get straight into it. So my first lesson in business is when I first started full time in my business, I used to go under the brand CDB Design Studio. And then, with a service based business, and especially when you show up as the face of your brand, people get to know you, right? And that's where I evolved into personal branding and just simply going by Cassia Marina on social media. And I changed everything from CDB Design Studio. And with time, I even eventually changed the business brand name. So anyway, slipping is not even a great word, but evolving into becoming a personal brand. And it wasn't something that I just decided, oh yeah, I'm gonna do personal branding. Like, I started off with a business brand, but then I recognized what people were resonating with. And this is something that you have to take into consideration as a business. You have to really pay attention to what's resonating with your audience and with your people. And it kind of at first used to get on my nerves, like, why aren't people telling people about my business by saying, hey, my stuff was done by CDB Design Studio, my stuff was done by da 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 da, go check out CDB Design Studio. Everybody would just say, oh yeah, Cassia. And again, I didn't fight it. I was like, okay, well, this is what's resonating, and I totally get why. Because with personal branding, and especially not personal branding, but a service-based business, especially when you're the one showing up as the mascot and face of your brand, especially again in even creative services, like you might have a photography studio or a video or social media, or usually creative businesses tend to quickly be identified by the founder or the owner. When you think about even like real estate companies, you identify with the service provider, you identify with the actual person as the brand, even though they might have a full-fledged agency or a full-fledged company in the background. People just come to know you and always want to see you and interact with you. And there's power in that. So I leaned into it. It's just after what, 17, let's say about somewhere in 2017, 18. So let me count from 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Like after 2 to 3 years minimum of being a personal brand, the lines become blurred in terms of the separation of business and personal. And I think also what made me lose myself as a person and understanding that I am a person separate to business, because entrepreneurship and being a small business owner, you never shut off, you never turn off, and it just takes over your life. You never stop thinking about work. Like when you leave the office of your 9 to 5, you stop thinking about work. Well, for the majority, right? You are able to switch off. Whereas as a business owner, you're thinking about, did I respond to that client? Did I this? Did I that? Like, it's really hard to turn off. And this is why, like, it's even, I don't want to like get into gender roles and say that it's harder for women versus men, but I just want to say to some degree, like if you're a woman with kids, your business becomes a third child, and that's why it's a lot, especially for women, to juggle business and being a mother sometimes, simply because of the society that we live in. And it's a fact, and it's not me complaining or anything like that, but the facts are, when it comes to even parenting, there's such huge double standards when it comes to how society treats men versus women. And same thing when it comes to a business, because men are able to still like go do what they need to do, even though they might be a parent, and focus on their business. Like people understand, he's working on the business, blah, 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 blah. But somehow we are supposed to, as women, work like we don't have kids yet. What's he saying? Work like you don't have kids, but take care of your kids like you don't work either. You know, there's a double standard in society, but that's a whole other topic for a completely different time, right? So again, back to personal branding. So everything overlaps and your business becomes your baby. And I lost my identity over time because I really didn't give a lot of time and attention to nurturing Cassia the person, if that makes sense. It might make more sense if you continue to listen, and especially as I dive into my journey even with therapy in 2021. I'm not going to get too deep into it in this episode, but I'm just dropping the breadcrumbs. Next episode is the therapy episode, where I talk about it as like, that was one of my huge personal goals to kick off 2021, and my year just consistently doing that. So guys, if you haven't subscribed to this podcast episode yet and you're still relying on getting updates via being on my email list or social media to know like, oh, a new episode dropped, like, why are you doing all of that? Just click that subscribe button, okay? All right. So where was I? So personal branding. The lesson here, the first lesson is personal branding is still business. It really contributed to eroding my mental health, because I would take a lot of things personally, or not, or let me explain that better. If somebody wasn't into my services anymore, or they did not come back as a return customer, even though you poured your heart and soul into nurturing that lead, having building relationship. They talk so much, or I should say we talk so much about building relationship. Sometimes you can't help but take it to heart when somebody, a client or prospective client, they don't convert, or then you take up all of your time and you just constantly are giving and giving and giving all of this time, attention, nurturing, and creating all of this free content. And then just like that, they either go with the competition, they or whatever the case, or they unfollow, or they unsubscribe, or whatever the case may be. And when these things happen in business, it really starts to feel like a personal attack. All right, so where was I? I am back. So it starts to feel like a personal attack, and of course it isn't. And I had to somehow, I discovered, I was like, wait, again, I'm going back to how things were a couple years ago when I was, really killing it, and these things weren't an issue, and I wasn't like struggling with like my mental health and when it comes to entrepreneurship, etc., etc. And one of the things I identified, and of course, therapy had a big part to play in it. But even in my own reflective moments, I realized that there was still a level of separation in terms of how I approach my social media. I think one of my biggest mistakes that I made is when I closed my personal Instagram account. I deactivated it. I was just like, oh, I'm sick of people trying to friend request me on my personal account. Why don't they just follow the public page? The instructions are in the bio, yada, yada, yada. And my business bestie told me, like, well, do you really need to have two accounts? Like, do you need to have two Cassia accounts? And that's the mistake that I made, because what I came to realize in my journey and my exercises in therapy, in separating like Cassia the person, who are you as a person, and Cassia the brand, it took me a while to work on that. Even before therapy, I was listening to this episode from another marketer based out of USA, and in this space that I really do love her content. And she shared on her Instagram even her own struggle with, being so consumed by her business, being consumed by entrepreneurship, that, and also just people always wanting something from her because, she's so and so, and this is her business. Like, people always want something. And when I first heard her said, like, I'll say the name, who was, Emily the person, I was like, damn, I felt that. Like, who's Emily the person? The person outside of business, the person outside of entrepreneurship. And she had to intentionally take a year to really work on that part of her life. And that really hit me, because I noticed that a lot of my so-called friendships came from, like, yes, I had personal friends, but a lot of the people that I became consumed by were really just associates in business. They weren't really friends. And that's how I was able to identify that this shit isn't healthy. Like, you need to be able to like make friends outside of entrepreneurship. And somehow, like, even in a personal space, like, once people get to know like who you are and what you do, it just somehow comes right back to business and how you can help them. And I really, again, this is where it came from, me learning boundaries, how to separate, like, yo, we can chit chat and laugh, that's what we do for free. But when it's time to talk business and you want strategies and you want help with this and that, you need to book that consultation, okay? And a lot of people will come under the guise of, oh, we're just connecting and, we're having a quote unquote cool conversation. But it very quickly and easily turns into a conversation about, well, I have this business idea. What do you think? Um, I don't know. It depends. Are you gonna go click that link and book that consultation? And that was something I learned over time, that a lot of my boundaries, I want to say, were eroded, but it wasn't eroded because I didn't have boundaries. I just wanted to be open and friendly and help people, but that was only hurting me. It was only hurting me in the long run, because after, when people got what they wanted, they didn't have time for me and my brand and my business, and weren't really giving anything back to the business, not even sharing a post or listening to an episode. So then what are we really doing here? What are we really doing here? Okay. So I had to really be established internal boundaries, and that's a concept I learned in therapy. Those internal boundaries had to be established first before I can have external boundaries. What is not okay? I first have to know what's important to me, what's okay to me, what is important for what is going to make me, I don't want to say make me upset, but what would be a disrespect to me and my business and my brand, And I found that a lot of the issues that I encountered was due to lack of boundaries. So all of 2021 was a lot of unlearning and learning, because, man, if next episode of season 5, it's actually due to this whole people come walking in and taking and constantly taking, and then when they get what they want, they left, is kind of what even sent me into my first therapy session at the beginning of 2021. Right? So this is a super vulnerable episode. It's insane for me to share this. I'm usually somebody who loves to share, but again, as I learned about boundaries and keeping some things private and keeping some things for myself, I've really come to appreciate keeping some things to myself, long and short, right? So yeah, back to the main point at hand. I had to learn how to, yes, as a personal brand, aspects of you overlap into the business, but it shouldn't encompass it altogether. I shouldn't get swallowed up completely in my business, because then it's am I selling myself? I mean, yes, I'm selling myself, but it's it starts to border on prostitution when you're giving all of yourself to the world. And that's why I had to learn to keep something for myself, keep something for me, keep something for my kids, keep something for my friends, and just really separate and understand who are business associates, and you have to navigate that in one way, and then who are your friends' friends. I honestly just kind of became so fed up of being so open and willing to help everybody and down to collaborate, that I just also came to a point where it's I don't want any business friends anymore. Either you're gonna be my friend in real life, or I don't really care to have business friends. And I mean, of course, I say that lightly. I don't really mean that 100%, but I mean it. Of course, there would be exceptions. Of course, there are business associates where the relationships will deepen. But now it's you really do have to earn that spot in my life. I don't know if this might seem like I'm going off course, but it all falls under personal branding, The biggest lesson that I learned at personal branding is still business. And I had to learn to separate myself from the business and just come into my personal brand Instagram account, stay focused that I'm here to help people and, post what I need to post, say what I need to say, and bounce and head over to my personal account for the shits and giggles over there. Right? I know that there are some of you who follow me on that account, and that's cool. I am okay with that. But I had to reactivate that account so that I could actually unplug on a weekend. Because, yeah, I love Instagram like every other human being. Like, me unplugging from my work shouldn't have to mean that I delete the app and run away. If that's what I feel to do when I'm taking a Instagram hiatus, then by all means. But having two accounts is like me leaving the office. I left the office on Friday, or I leave the office every day around this time. So now I'm hopping over to my personal account where I could just scroll and just, listen, read some celebrity gossip or memes, laugh. I love following self-development pages that, circle around self-help, therapy, and stuff like that. Like, that stuff really nourishes my spirit and my soul. So I love that. And I can instantly feel the energy shift in both accounts. Like, it's so different. Where, like, when I'm on my underscore Casa Marina account, that's my personal brand account, I suddenly start to see the competition on my feed. I see all of the other marketers. I see all of the other businesses. And it's like, ugh, I don't want to see this. I don't want to think about work. And that's another thing that it's important why I needed to have that separation. Because it's not that, anybody's page was like triggering per se. Because if it's triggering, I'm going to mute the page or unfollow. Right? But it's just that someone will make a post about 5 steps to this or that, and then it catapults me back into a headspace of work, and then my brain can't shut off. So that's why it's like so important for my mental health. And it's important for your mental health as well, that if you feel like you need to have a separate account, and I think I spoke about this in a earlier episode, definitely in season 4, I did touch on this, that one of the biggest hacks to your mental health is having 2 separate social accounts. So that is actually lesson number 3, social media and mental health. Like, I kind of just segued into it, but that's my second lesson, like why separation is so important. So separation in the actual business and being able to mentally separate that this what I'm doing here, this activity I'm doing right now on social media has to do with business. This email that I'm sending out is purely business. And when I say email, that's the email list. And this email that I'm sending out via Gmail, like everything that is a business activity, I had to be able to detach from it so that I don't feel, it doesn't erode my mental health when, I don't get the desired outcome, if that makes sense to you. I hope that made sense what I'm saying. It's kind of a tricky thing to explain, but it did wonders for me shifting mentally when it came to how I approached my business. I guess I would say I struggled a lot with feeling like, oh, if this post didn't get this much engagement or likes or shares, I would even start to feel like, oh my, maybe people don't like me. And it's like, shit doesn't have anything to do with you as a person. Like, it has to do with the fact that maybe this isn't the service that they want or the service that they need at this very moment. And that's what I mean by taking it personal. Like, yes, business is personal, but it's still business. And I think sometimes we take that whole personal branding mantra that business is personal a little too literal, because at the end of the day, you, the business owner, is still a person separate to the business, and the business is the business. And it allowed me to look at things that I was doing in my business a lot more strategically is not the word that I want to say, but look at it more from a, I guess it's strategically, or look at it more like this is business. Okay, so if this didn't work, or this didn't get the amount of shares or the conversions or whatever desired result, whatever the key performance indicator is, okay, what do we need to change? And I think when you also have that mental shift, it helps you to be able to, it will always be scary sending out customer service surveys or picking up the phone or sending that email to find out how they felt about your service. That will always be scary, especially if you're a service provider. But when you always remind yourself, maybe put it on a post-it on your wall, that you, the person, and you, the brand, are separate, or you, the person, and you, the business, are separate. For those of us that struggle with separating the two and we're just so consumed by our businesses, it really allows you to be able to separate and detach. I think that's the word that I'm looking for. Like, you want to like detach and just look at it like, okay. And actually that really helps so much, not just again from the mental health perspective, but from the finding more solutions. Like, okay, well, they didn't like this, so okay, let's try something else, or let's do this instead. Or okay, it allowed me to get excited again about what I was doing, because that's who I was when the first couple of years in business. If I found like, okay, that doesn't work, let's try this, let's do this, because I was thinking more like a CEO, and I was thinking more like a business owner, working on a business that provides services, rather than being engulfed in the business and feeling like, essentially just taking it personal when you didn't need to. All right, so though that's the first lesson, and the second lesson is social media and separating, like having two separate accounts. Because, Instagram is kind of different to Facebook. Facebook, you have a personal page and a business page. So it's easy to clearly be like, yeah, this is my personal page, and, this is where I post business content. TikTok, it's kind of like Instagram, where if you don't have two accounts, you might start to like lose your identity and the lines become blurred. But I don't have that issue on TikTok. So for now, I don't feel the need to have two accounts over there, and it's totally fine. But we all know that Instagram is, let's be real, it's kind of toxic sometimes, right? Anyway, so moving on to the last lesson, and that is the third one. Focus on the customer more than the competition. So another vulnerable post, right? We all get consumed by looking at what the other person is doing. It's really hard not to see the competition when in this digital age, when you are on social media. And I don't even like using the word competition, but you know what I mean? It's your competitor. Every business has competitors, right? And we are supposed to be aware of what's happening in our industry and what other businesses who may offer similar services, or just, parallel businesses to yours. You have to be aware of other solutions that your customer is exposed to, because your customer in reality is not just looking at you when the day comes, they're looking at all of their options. All right. So I don't like to use the word competition. But if you want to use another word, you can say like focus on the customer more than the customer's other options. Sometimes your competition isn't necessarily another business owner who has the exact same business as your business model, but again, they're in the industry. They might be offering a product, maybe not a service, but a product that solves a similar problem that you solve, right? So these are things you have to be aware of in the marketplace. But when you get too hyper focused on what the other options are doing, you really start to lose sight of your own brand values, your brand vision, your mission, and what you stand for. And if you listen to the last episode, I talked about my exercise of me doing like brand journaling and journaling out, like doing my own audit and like sitting down and doing like my own strategy session and really journaling out like my purpose and who I help and what I'm passionate about and all of those different things. And as a business owner, that's the stuff you need to focus on as it relates to your customer. And when you focus on the customer, it makes for a better business owner because you start to just be lit up by solving your customer or your client's problems. Right? So if you feel like you feel lost or you feel dejected in your business or you feel depressed or you feel like, oh, why are they getting more likes or they're getting more follows or they're getting more reshares and I keep seeing people resharing that person's content and all of this other nonsense. When you focus on so much on that stuff, you're actually losing sight of what you're here to do. I'm going to repeat that. When you focus too much on the customer's other options than the customer itself, and you focus on all of the other things like Instagram and the engagement and this and that, and as opposed to just showing up and building a business for solving your customers' problems, that's when things go wrong for you. I hope you all got that. All right. We spend way too much time on the competition when we should be focusing on the customer. We're not here to serve the competition. That's not our mission. That's not our purpose. Like really and truly. And I heard that quote and it really woke me up. And then I forgot about the quote. And then one day I just had this epiphany, right during my time away from Instagram when I went into hibernation. If you all don't know what I'm talking about, you have to go listen to the last episode. But it just kind of dawned on me, like as I sat down and I wrote out my why and what I'm passionate about, and I basically did the same thing on my own business that I'll do with clients, it really hit me like, I found my light again. I found my passion again. I felt excited to serve again rather than just doing things for like a lot of the reasons why we put out certain things online or in our content are really empty sometimes because you're focusing on things like likes and shares, and those things are important key performance indicators, yes. However, when you're too focused on vanity metrics, because to some degree they do border on vanity metrics, that if you are not focusing on those things as well as still every day waking up, what is the purpose of my business? What is my purpose? What am I here to do? Like your business is a vehicle to a particular purpose, right? I'm not going to get too deep into purpose and whatnot. But I would say that our work in our business should be at least part of our personal purpose in life. And it's just one, you know. I've listened to these podcasts where we feel like, oh, our purpose always has to be like this grand thing and accomplishing this and that. And it makes sense that our purpose is many different things, you know. Being a mother is a purpose. Being a sister is a purpose. Caring for a loved one is a purpose. We have many different purposes, but your work that you do, which for us as entrepreneurs is our businesses, is a vehicle to accomplishing one of those purposes. And if our purpose is to bring a solution in our society and help, you know, maybe others like ourselves, like many times we start a business and it starts from a story. It starts from something that we might have encountered as a problem, we encountered in our childhood. it's always tied to something bigger and something greater, um, outside of just monetization, if we're being real. Like usually it's something that you're fairly passionate about, right? And this is why it's so important that when you feel like something is just feeling like it's too heavy in your business, it could be Instagram, it could be social media, it could be, whatever it is for you, take a step back and ask yourself, is what I'm doing right now me focusing on the customer, or am I focusing on other things that uh I guess you can say like hollow. I hope that makes sense. So yeah, if you totally get where I'm coming from, I would love to get your feedback. Be sure to subscribe to this podcast, leave a review, share it. I would love to hear your key takeaways or your thoughts on this episode. But yeah, those are my top 3 lessons in business for 2021. And I can't wait to catch you for the next episode. It's going to be super vulnerable again, but even more than these two. So as I get you guys caught up on things of those nature, don't worry, I'll be back with, things that are less close to the heart. I mean, I'm sure some of you all might be enjoying these episodes, but yeah, don't worry. It's not going to be all about this type of stuff alone. We're going to get back to, 3 steps to da 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 da. All right, so I will catch you guys in the next episode.